In this video, we are going to talk about the principal value. Sometimes you randomly see some question on principal value. So the definition is this one. If you look at this part, okay, when you press the sine inverse function, cosine inverse function, tangent inverse function on the scientific calculator, okay, your calculator will give you that value. So that value that appear on your screen when you press that three button, one of the three button, is what we'll call the principal value. So for short, I'm going to call it a PV. So there is a certain restriction on the calculator. The restriction is how much the angle can be shown. Okay, so if you press sine inverse, the range is from minus pi over 2 to pi over 2, which is, if it's in degree, then it will be minus 90 to 90. So in terms of the sine graph, okay, so if you think about it as a sine graph, you might want to think of it as like the first quadrant and the fourth quadrant. So whatever that your calculator is giving you when you press sine inverse will either happen in the first or the fourth quadrant. So I will be showing you numerical example. Okay, so I will use question 1 to show you a numerical example. So on the sine inverse, if you look at question 1a, okay, they ask you for the principal value of sine inverse, okay, minus 1 over root 2. So technically, you can just press calculator. Okay, so I'm going to show you first. If you press this on your calculator is not going to give you a nice answer. So essentially, your calculator will give you like minus 0.785 something. So how would you know whether it's a nice value in terms of pi? The calculator trick is you divide by 4, it will actually give you this value. Okay, when you divide by 4, it will actually give you this value. So which means that essentially is minus 1 over 4 pi. So this is the answer. This is the calculator part of it. So where is it reflected on the graph, right? So you ask yourself, where is your minus 1 over root 2? So minus 1 over root 2 is around minus 0.707. So it's somewhere here. Okay, no, maybe a bit closer here. So the graph, so where is this? So essentially, this is the principal value. So whatever that you have found on minus pi over 4 is the answer here. Okay, so there's not much working. Essentially, you can just punch calculator and just be mindful. Oh, okay. So if let's say in another question, if you are asked about the principal value of sine inverse 1 over root 2, okay, so you can ask yourself, where is 1 over root 2? 1 over root 2 is here. So what is this angle? So if you have directly pressed calculator, again, you will get, if you press out this on your calculator, it will give you this value. Okay, you divide by pi, it will give you 1/4. So the answer is just pi over 4, or you can just write 1/4. So that's all. That's just the calculator value for the sine inverse part. Okay, so let's go on to the cosine part. Okay, when you press cosine inverse, the range is from 0 to pi or 0 to 180. Sometimes they will ask you for the range, so you do need to remember. So on the graph of the cosine graph, you might want to think of it as Like this one is the first quadrant. This one is the second quadrant. So your calculator of cosine inverse will either give you an acute or an obtuse angle. Okay, so first and second quadrant means it will either give you an acute or an obtuse angle. Okay, so okay, I'm going to show you question 1b. Question 1b is asking for the principal value of cosine inverse minus root 3 over 2. So if you want to visualize where is it on the graph, so minus root 3 over 2 is actually minus 0.866. Okay, let me just double check. Yeah, minus 0.866. So that's somewhere here. So you are looking for this angle. And you realize you already hit a second quadrant. Okay, so you already hit the second quadrant. So again, you could have just punched it calculator in your calculator. Okay, so you can just punch calculator. Okay. Again, the calculator won't give you a nice value. So you can divide by pi. Okay, if you divide by pi, it actually gave you a 0.833, which is like 5 over 6. So you need to know that that decimal is a 5 over 6. So the answer is actually 5 over 6 pi. So it's just 5 over 6 pi, which is the principal value. Okay. However, because I know that this one is the second quadrant, so sometimes I do it in another way. Okay, sometimes I do it in another way. So if you remember, the idea of second quadrant is pi minus alpha. So I actually do a pi minus cosine inverse root 3 over 2. Because alpha is always positive, I ignore the negative. So if I do that, I will get pi over 6. This one is a special angle. So I will still get 5 pi over 6. So this is my alternative. Because I know that it is asking for the second quadrant. Otherwise, I can just punch calculator and divide by pi to see whether I can express it in terms of pi nicely. Okay. So that is for the cosine. Only for the cosine, then you got the positive. Only got for the cosine, then you got the first and second quadrant. Okay, because if you go on to the tangent inverse, the range is like sine inverse. If you go on to tangent inverse, the range is like sine inverse, which is minus pi over 2 to pi over 2, minus 90 to 90. So essentially, it's the first and the fourth quadrant. Okay, so for the tangent inverse, right, it's very much like sine inverse. It's the same calculator trick. So I'm going to show you question 1C. Question 1C is asking for the principal value of tangent inverse root 3. So you can think about where is root 3. So this is root 3. This is the principal value that we are asking. Okay, so you can just directly punch calculator. Okay, if you punch the calculator directly, it is not going to give you a nice answer straight away. Okay, so it will give you like 1.04719. So what you can do is, again, you divide by pi. Okay, if you divide by pi, it will give you 0.33333 something, which is a 1/3. That means it's just a 1/3 pi. So the principal value is just a 1/3 pi. So essentially, you can just punch calculator. So if you are asked what they can ask for the range of the principal values, okay, which is like usually is you either give it in degree or radian mode, it's like 1 mark each, or they ask you for any principal value, is essentially only 1 mark. So you just punch calculator and see whether if it's in radian mode, you got to see whether you can portray it in terms of pi. If it's in degree mode, I think that's a lot easier. It's just directly what you press and whatever that's given to you in degree mode. Okay. Okay. However, there's a question that is slightly is an extension of this principal value idea. So I'm going to show it to you. It's on question 9. So question 9 is a slight extension of this principal value idea, but it extends to the method of drawing triangle and also addition formula. Okay, so if you take a look at this question 9, you won't know it's related to principal value. However, because they say exact value, okay, and then there's a sine inverse function, there's a tangent inverse function. So you might want to be a bit more mindful when you see the inverse function, relate it to the principal value. So I'm going to let this be A and B. Okay, so the inverse, the two separate inverse, right? I'm going to let it be I'm going to let it be A and I'm going to let it be B. So essentially, right, I am looking at the addition formula. So I'm going to use my addition formula to find the exact value. So that is the plan. That is the aim that we are going to be doing this. So how am I going to make use of the A and B? So I'm going to make use of the A and B in a triangle method. So this one is sine inverse. So if you throw it forward, back, you will get sine A equal to 4 over 5. So if we apply the range of principal value, okay, we will know that this is the first quadrant, not the fourth quadrant, right? The range of the sine inverse function. Okay, so you will already know how to draw triangle. You already know how to draw triangle in the first quadrant. So go ahead and draw it. Okay, do your Pythagoras. Okay, try to get a cosine A. Because I will need a cosine A here. Okay, so that's how I make use of the inverse thing. Okay, then now the next one. Then what about B? B is a tangent inverse. So you need to think about your range for tangent inverse. Okay, you think about the range for tangent inverse. Okay, so I'm going to push the inverse over, push it back. I will get a tangent. Okay, tangent negative can be second or fourth quadrant. However, the range of the principal value doesn't include second quadrant. So you will take the fourth quadrant. So you will draw the triangle in the fourth quadrant. So you draw the triangle in the fourth quadrant. Do your Pythagoras theorem. Get your sine B. Your sine B will be a negative because it's fourth quadrant. Your cosine B, because it's fourth quadrant, it will be a positive. Your ASTC is still applicable here. Okay, so that is the idea that we are going to have. Then after that, okay, after the two blocks of triangle already, I can have the individual fraction. So here I got the 3 over 5. Okay, cosine B, I got 2 over root 5. Sine A, I will have 4 over 5. Sine B, I will have minus 1 over root 5. So from here, you just do your surds. Okay, remember your job is to leave it in the exact form. So your job is to leave it in the exact form. So just make sure you do your surds accordingly. Okay, you rationalize accordingly. Okay, so can this one be checked? You can actually check this. You can punch this out on your calculator value. Okay, you will get 0.846. Sorry, 0.8, 0.894. Okay. Then you going to punch this. You punch this original. You punch exactly this on your calculator. It should also give you this. So that's where you know that you are correct. Okay, so this question 9 is a bit like an extension of the principal value. Okay, but it involves the triangle method and also the addition formula. Some prelim papers have this question. I also don't know why, but I suppose if the prelim paper has this question, the school should have got them. So far, it has never appeared in O-level before, but I don't think there's any harm knowing it. If you look at the steps, right, nothing is out of your syllabus. The principal value technically is in your syllabus, though it's such a rare thing. Okay, the triangle method, the addition formula is quite, I think it's very basic in your trigo. So technically, this question is not so out of syllabus. It's just that you don't see it often. Okay, the same idea also happened on question 11. If you want, you can try it. Okay, so anyway, the basic one will just be the range and also just punching calculator. Technically, it's really just punching. So you just have to get used to the punching and how to leave it in pi. Okay, you can practice all the rest of the question that's here.